And relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
This is Chase Iron Eyes announcing a new show on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, powered by Native Roots Radio. The show is called Native American Patriot Talk Radio. What will we do on the show? We are going to explore and dive into the source of American constitutional sovereignty, the intersection of Native American and legal issues. Find us the first and third Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. on AM 950.
Support comes from the Walker Arts Center. Local artist Rosie Simas, Seneca Nation of Indians, Huron Clan, embodies Onondaga philosophies of peacemaking and relationality in new immersive installation. Visit Agay Jagwa Destiny Gowaweni. I hope it'll stir your mind and explore a space built for communal rest and contemplation. Simas presents a performance of the same name this May. Learn more about the exhibition and performance at walkerart.org. I heard sex trafficking happens a lot in Indian country. What is that?
Here are some of the real reasons why sex trafficking happens in Indian country. Unequal gender roles that were forced on us by colonization. Communities don't have enough resources. Silence around domestic and sexual violence. Lack of attention and justice for missing and murdered Indigenous people. There's a lot of behavior that keeps our communities out of balance. These are just a few true reasons why Native communities are targeted by traffickers. When these acts of violence happen in our communities, it opens us all up for exploitation.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low of 42, then Saturday, sunshine with a high of 76. Dinosaur World is taking over Children's Theater Company for an immersive tour where you can feel the roar and even smell their stinky breath. Get ready to face a T-Rex and be sneezed on by a Triceratops. Dinosaur World runs now through April 5th. Get your tickets at childrenstheater.org.
It's a good day to be Indigenous.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagi to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. Hey, we discuss local, national, Native news and events, and as you know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. Hey, it's Friday, and we got our friend, State Senator Mary Kunesh on, and it's a busy time of the year, State Senator, so I really, really appreciate you being on and talking us through what's going on at the Capitol and what you're working on. Welcome.
Welcome to you too, and thank you so much for tuning in here today, everyone. I'm at my office. It's a busy time of year as we move to our first and second deadlines at the legislature. And so we're hearing bill after bill after bill. I think down in judiciary, they have 41 bills that they aim to get through today, and 2 of those are mine. So I'm waiting for them to call me down to the hearing room to present my bill. I have a couple of, one is just one around making some changes to PALSB, which is our, like our teachers and education committee or group here in the Capitol, but I also had two that I already heard today, and one is around the school trust lands. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Well, we
but
talked a little bit about that.
yeah. And so I'm proposing a constitutional amendment that would allow Minnesota to keep the corpus of this trust fund that we've had since Minnesota became a state in 1858. Keep that corpus going and raising money through investments for our students, but at the same time, allowing us to use a little bit more of those earnings to get out to the students. Right now, I think each student receives about a little over $74 per student every year from this school trust fund, which doesn't seem like a lot if we've been investing since 1858. And so if all goes as planned, we will be able to actually take a little bit more of those earnings while keeping the bulk of the money still invested, and almost double that. So it would be a little under $150, maybe $140, maybe $135 per student to go out to all of the students in Minnesota to help with their education. And we're really lucky to have this corpus. A lot of other states that had these school trust lands that were designated by the federal government sold them off a long time ago, so they don't even have that trust fund. Utah did an incredible job of reorganizing it, and now they're, hand over fist. Minnesota, we won't be doing it quite that much, but it allows us to increase that amount for the first time since 1858. And then also, rather than having to always do a constitutional amendment, put that investment amount into statute so that we can make adjustments down the road. It's a constitutional amendment, so it would mean that this question would go on the ballot in November. And so I'll keep you posted, because we have to get the word out there and educate people around why it's so important to vote yes on this and get quite a bit of money, millions and millions of dollars out to the schools. And this is going to really help, especially our rural schools that are really struggling to get money for education. And you know what? It's not going to cost Minnesotans a penny. It's not going to increase your tax dollars. And so it is truly a win-win for everybody. So that one I'm really excited about.
Wow, that I was just going to say that is a win-win. So yeah, let's get that out there. And I think last time we talked about, sometimes those constitutional amendments are so confusing. You're voting yes to vote no, and so you were talking about last week that it's going to be pretty straightforward, and people will understand what they're voting on.
Yeah, it will be a very straightforward question, and as this moves forward, and when we get it passed, because we have like almost 100% bipartisan support here in the Senate, and the House is really excited about it. Both sides of the aisle are excited about it. I'm pretty confident, knock on wood, but I don't want to myself, that this will happen, and it will give all the schools an incredible boost, because it goes right into their general fund, which means they don't have that's money that they can decide to use in whichever way they want to. It doesn't have any special allocation like to feed the kids or to go to curriculum or whatever. This is money that schools can choose at the local level and how to use.
Do you know how many bills you've written in the almost 10 years and being in the House and Senate? Do you know by any chance?
Somewhere I have a spreadsheet that has all the bills that I've had since I first began as a state legislator 10 years ago. But I don't have it here in front of me. If I can pull it up, I'll try to do that. But I just have to remind you, I don't write the bills.
Yeah.
I'm the author of the bills. We have lawyers and researchers and experts that actually write those bills so that they're in the proper legislative form, that they refer to the correct statutes and legislation and connect to other parts of our laws. So I can't take credit for writing them, but oftentimes people will come to me with ideas for legislation or how we should, perhaps amend something. And really and truly, just by providing the idea, maybe some of the details, I hand all that over to them. They look at it. We might bring you in to talk about the bill so that they have clarification. And then they actually write those bills, and always double check before we get them jacketed and dropped into what we call the hopper. Then that goes to get a bill number, and then we start the hearing process. So it is a process, and it can take a while. So, if you come to me today and say, oh, I have a great idea, let's get it done this year, there's no way at this point that we'd be able to do that. But coming up, next year's another year, and hopefully I'll be here and able to help you.
Well, and I guess it was just the worded verbiage was wrong, that you're the author of the bill, but there are so many people that I know of that are in the House and Senate that don't do half of that. So that's what I wanted to get at. That
nice.
you do a lot of authoring, and that's noticed across community and in Indian country for sure.
Oh, thank you. It's people have just really great ideas, and I want to, like I always say, I want to leave this place in better shape than I found it. And if you have ideas, please let me know.
And then maybe in the last minute we have here, maybe you can just give out your email
Sure.
Real quick.
Yeah, my email is sen, S-E-N, .mary, .kunesh, K-U-N-E-S-H, at mnsenate.gov.
Excellent. Hey, we are here with State Senator Mary Kunesh, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. This is Native Roots Radio. Ho!
When we heal from our traumas,
when we face our fears,
let go of our addictions,
when we relearn our values,
when we live our teachings,
respecting our elders,
cherishing and honoring our children,
when we honor and take care of our spirit,
there will be no room left for sexual violence.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women Sexual Assault Coalition.
Support comes from the Walker Arts Center. Did you know that the Walker has a cinema that shows film almost every week? From artist talks, genre-defined performances, and world premieres to archival shorts and experimental soundscapes, the Walker Cinema explores all modes of global and local filmmaking. Get your first tickets for free. Visit walkerart.org/cinema to learn more. That's walkerart.org/cinema. See you at the movies. Aho, this is Robert Pilot. For Native relatives, healing is more than just sobriety. It's reclaiming Indigenous masculinity as a sacred, balanced force. Join Hunter Thundercloud for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. We explore how personal recovery uplifts our communities. It's time men step back into roles as mentors and spiritual leaders. Recovery is collective, and it starts with us. Tune in the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. Let's tend the fire together.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots
Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, welcome back, everyone. I'm here with State Senator Mary Kunesh, and she's working at the Capitol, and I really appreciate you stopping in. Do you have anything else, any other updates to bring up this past week that we can talk about before we get into what's happening in the next week?
Well, let's see. I did have another hearing on the wild rice, the inherent rights of wild rice. And that went a little bit better this time around. There's a lot of questions about, what does that word inherent mean? And what are the ramifications if, what people consider an inanimate object has inherent rights? And we know that the indigenous perspective is very different than the colonizer or non-native folks when it comes to recognizing the spiritual value, the nutritional value, the cultural value of wild rice. And so I feel like I'm doing a lot of educating. And, I just feel like I have to do it in almost a gentle, bit by bit, piece by piece way, because it gets really overwhelming for people. It's a really hard concept for them to wrap their head around. And I think we know that for us, it's just instinctive. It's just natural for us as indigenous people to recognize the sacredness of wild rice. And, it's going to take a bit of time for folks to be able to, kind of come to a level of acceptance. There will be a lot of people that would say, I don't understand it. I don't feel what you feel. The comprehension level isn't there, but we know it's important to our indigenous neighbors, our indigenous people, and we will embrace that nonetheless. And really appreciative of that. I had a talk with one of the TV stations today, a little interview about it, and I wore my wild rice earrings. And I really apologize, but I can't remember the name of the artist who made these. I know I picked them up at an art show at Muckwa Coffee maybe 2-3 years ago, and I get so many compliments about them. But if you are out there and you hear this, would you please reach out to me and remind me that you are the artist so that I can give you the kudos that you deserve. Many people have just given me compliment after compliment, and I'm really kind of embarrassed that I didn't document that so that I can give you credit.
Well, not to confuse the issue, State Senator, but Native Roots Trading Post sells those kind of earrings too, with wild rice and corn and everything in it in the resin form too. Just throwing that out there, a quick short commercial for Native Roots Trading Post.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, they're a great talking piece, and people want to hear about it. They want to hear about wild rice. So that's really kind of exciting.
Are you able to remind our audience the Ojibwe that are recognized here in Minnesota had a story, because Ojibwe are from out east and they moved here until they found, and correct me if I'm wrong, until they found they're supposed to stop until they found the food that floats on water, and that ended up being wild rice.
Yeah, so hundreds of years ago, this was Dakota land that we live on, that stretched, up into Canada. And let's remember, there were not borders back in those days. And so our Dakota people lived here for generations upon generations. And eventually some neighbors moved in, migrated from the east. And those are our Ojibwe Anishinaabe relatives whose elder had a premonition. And that premonition was that, you're going to need to leave this place in the east, move west to the place where the food grows on the water, and that will be our new homeland. This will be our new land. And of course, they arrived at the Great Lakes in Minnesota, where it was bountiful with wild rice. What we have now is just a small fraction of the lakes that and the waterways that used to grow wild rice. And the Dakota people, this is really simplification, but the Dakota people moved over and made room for our Anishinaabe neighbors. And so they're up in the northern part of Minnesota stretching into Canada. And then our Dakota folks are basically south and west of the Twin Cities, spreading over into the Dakotas. And so we've lived like this for, many generations, and hoping to be able to do that and continue. Part of the work with the wild rice is not just to create that distinction of inherent rights, but I have a couple of bills that work off of this one around how watercrafts can operate near and in the lakes where wild rice runs. And then also controls around pesticides and that sort of thing. So it's a bit of a comprehensive package that I opened up last year, and then we kind of broken it into different sections and moving those bills in different areas, because it felt very overwhelming for a lot of legislators who were just like, whoa, this is way too much all at once. So we're giving them nibbles and bites.
That's good. Some of them need those nibbles and bites. One of the things I want to remind people too, and remind myself, is I've seen pictures in the first part of the 20th century with wild rice still on the lakes in the cities. And also, there's places like in Wisconsin called Rice Lake, and so it was really abundant. So that's really really gratifying, or really good for me to hear that you're going to have a more comprehensive bill, because we'd love that to come back for everybody.
We absolutely will. I mean, here in Minnesota, we have, rice. We have Rice Street here in St. Paul. We have the Rice Creek watershed, which was a series of creeks that connected with Mille Lacs Lake, which is like the hugest lake, next to the Great Lakes, a huge lake that had and Lake Onamia. Those creeks connected all the way down from up north, traveling down to the Twin Cities, to St. Paul, actually connecting to what we call Wakantipi now, and Badote. And those were the passageways of, moving rice from the north to the south. Those, Wakantipi and Badote, those were also trading spots where other tribes would come and trade for, the goods that our folks had and that they wanted to take. So it has a huge, huge history. And it's fascinating to go back and look at the old maps and see these passageways, whether on land or by water, and how people moved around Minnesota, but then how they were basically destroyed or cut off by dams, by burying these creeks underground so that they could, build, filling in waterways. But there are some really great old maps, and I've been able to study them a little bit and recognize some of the areas that I grew up. I grew up about 80 miles north of here on the Watab Creek, and where the Mississippi River meet. And those were, my sister found arrowheads there, and there's sort of a dip at the top of a hill that overlooked the river. And we always called it the Indian dip, because we always imagined that they would lay there and be able to see for miles around undetected, because they were in a little bit of a dip, or the buffalo dip, where the buffalo would lay and watch out. But, we try to piece our history back from what we know. Sometimes it's right, but sometimes it's wrong. And we know that the Ho-Chunk were also in that area as well. They had a village there.
Yeah, definitely. So I got only a minute and a half here left. that was really interesting. I'm glad we talked about the wild rice. What do you got going on this week? I know it's mayhem and a lot of work, and we really appreciate you and the updates. What do you got in store that that's coming up?
Well, next week is going to be super busy because our first and second deadline are a week from Friday this week. So we have one more week to hear all the policy bills in the different policy committees. And then after that Friday, no more policy. And then they'll hear all the big policy omnibus bills. But I am the chair of Education Finance, and Finance will continue another week hearing bills that contain any kind of money or financial situations. And then some of these have to go through judiciary because of rulemaking. They have to go through finance because of the money. They have to go through rules. But we don't have that many more weeks left in the state legislative session.
Yeah, it's going quick. And then everybody stop by and see State Senator Mary Kunesh. She loves the company, but in between all your work, stop in and just say hi. And
happy to see you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, as always, especially this time of year. You're so busy. Really, really appreciate you coming on.
You bet.
Hey, this is Native Roots Radio. We'll be right back after this short break. Please stay with us. Ho-ah. Support comes from the Walker Arts Center, an art space that's more than the spoon and cherry. Galleries celebrate contemporary visual art, including indigenous artists like Edgar Heap of Birds from the Cheyenne and Arapaho nations, and Jim Demeny from the Ojibwe Nation. Additionally, film screens, cinema, and performances are shown on stage. And the Walker is free every Thursday night and free every day for citizens and members of tribal nations. Learn more at walkerart.org. Oh, this is Robert Pilot. For Native relatives, healing is more than just sobriety. It's reclaiming indigenous masculinity as a sacred, balanced force. Join Hunter Thundercloud for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. We explore how personal recovery uplifts our communities. It's time men step back into roles as mentors and spiritual leaders. Recovery is collective, and it starts with us. Tune in the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. Let's tend the fire together. Support comes from the Walker Arts Center. Did you know that the Walker has a cinema that shows film almost every week? From artist talks, genre-defined performances, and world premieres to archival shorts and experimental soundscapes, the Walker Cinema explores all modes of global and local filmmaking. Get your first tickets for free. Visit walkerart.org/cinema to learn more. That's walkerart.org/cinema. See you at the movies.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women Sexual Assault Coalition.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
This is Chase Iron Eyes announcing a new show on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, powered by Native Roots Radio. The show is called Native American Patriot Talk Radio. What will we do on the show? We are going to explore and dive into the source of American constitutional sovereignty, the intersection of Native American and legal issues. Find us the first and third Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. on AM 950.
Support comes from the Walker Arts Center. Local artist Rosie Simas, Seneca Nation of Indians, Huron Clan, embodies Onondaga philosophies of peacemaking and relationality in new immersive installation. Visit Agay Jagwa Desnigowaweni. I hope it'll stir your mind and explore a space built for communal rest and contemplation. SEMAS presents a performance of the same name this May. Learn more about the exhibition and performance at walkerart.org.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low of 42, then Saturday, sunshine with a high of 76. Warmer weather is on the horizon, and what better way to welcome it back than with a fantastic meal and a show at Crooner's Supper Club. Crooner's is located in Fridley on Highway 65, just north of I-694. Check out their concert schedules and dinner menus at croonersmn.com.
AM 950, KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
You're listening to the best of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, welcome back, everyone. This is Robert Pilot, and we have our friend Beth Castle with the Warrior Women Project on, and it's been a long time, Beth. Really great to see you, and thank you so much for coming on. I know there's a whole bunch coming on, happen here in the Twin Cities coming up really soon, and let's talk first about the Warrior Women Projects and remind all our relatives out there listening and our new listeners about this project.
Sure. Thank you, Robert, for having me. I know that, Native Roots Radio and your interest in Warrior Women Project really helped us get, our voices across Indian country, which I think, so much has grown with Native Roots Radio, just as Warrior Women Project. And we are busier than ever right now because isn't it not more important than ever we're just seeing what happens when we don't know our history, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in ways that is epic. So part of what Warrior Women has done for the past 20 some years is work together with the indigenous activists, the women in particular of the Red Power movement, to tell the histories of who brought us the word indigenous, what we're standing on today, all of that deep history, especially tied to a lot of the significant events in the 70s. But right now, if we've ever needed that matriarchal wisdom, we're really working at doing that with our digital oral history collection and the building of our archive.
Yeah, definitely. And, just to remind everyone out there that amazing documentary that you have, I don't know if you mind bringing that up and where people
Sure.
can see it or purchase it.
Yeah, we're actually in a space where we're really trying to get Warrior Women, the documentary that we made for PBS that was co-produced by a whole bunch of different really important actors like the Vision Maker Media, Sundance support that we had, but it came out in 2019 on PBS, and it features a mother and daughter, Madonna Thunderhawk and Marcella Gilbert, who are actively a part of the Warrior Women Project. That's what makes us different, is that these are all ongoing relationships, right? They're never one and done. It's the antithesis, if you will, I hope, of non-extractive, right? These relationships are ongoing. Warrior Women, the film, we'd love for you to see and use in whatever ways possible. You can access through our website, warriorwomen.org. And you can get, like right now, we rent it for a small fee. Contact us if you need it for free. We'll get it to you as well. But we're looking to redistribute it very soon on another, hopefully a level where it can get out there and be even more embraced.
Well, will there be any added segments to it? Because I know since meeting you guys, I've been to Wounded Knee, and I've seen at the time, I think Madonna was 79 or 80 years old on a horse, and things like that weren't shown in the movie. And they're still doing the work for our community as they have been for so long, both of them.
Yeah, I mean, the aspect of Warrior Women, our goal was always that it was the opening to this massive amount of content that we have. So that's what we're looking at doing right now. It's just that sometimes, you can't tack onto a film in the way that we hope. But what we are doing, for example, one of our big projects this year that I wanted to share here it's the 10th anniversary of No DAPL,
Yeah.
of the movement at Standing Rock, of the attempt to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline. And we're going to be producing a short documentary that is meant to celebrate that 10th anniversary. It's going to follow the story in particular of activists Phyllis Young, Madonna Thunderhawk, Mabel Ann Eagle Hunter, a handful of the women who are interviews in our collection, right? We have 100-person collection of Red Power activist interviews that we're making this content from. So you can expect this year a 10th anniversary short film about No DAPL, told through the history of the Red Power movement, as well as a piece on probably what we're hoping is a defining piece on Women of All Red Nations, which was formed in 1978 to work at stopping the sterilization abuse and also the ways extractive industries were impacting water, and all the ways in which we see Indigenous matriarchy being critical to our situation today. So we have 2 major pieces this year coming out.
Well, that's exciting, and I need to text you and talk about some things happening here in the Twin Cities that could maybe really align with your new documentary too. I don't know if you know this or remember this, but Native Roots Radio started because of the Dakota Access Pipeline. There was no information happening, so we're in our 10th season too. So we started at 1 hour, and we would go to Standing Rock and see these things that either were not brought out in the media or that were just misconstrued on how they were
Right.
reported. And so that's why Native Roots Radio first originally started.
I thought that was your origin story, but I didn't want to, presume, because I feel like we're growing with you, because
Yeah.
we've been in a similar way, really working to one of our first goals. This started as a history project for me, right? I have a PhD. I'm Dr. Beth, when I need to be fancy. But it started because these women were interviewing with me and saying, you correct the historical record, right? You make those changes. We want to see that. I want to know that my history, if I share this with you, it's going to be somewhere that's going to make an impact. So we've always tried to balance between how do we blow up that master narrative into something that resembles a truth when we know the entire country is literally built on the blood and bones of a history they don't want told, right? So much so that it's illegal now. But that doesn't stop us, of course. So it is the case that, No DAPL and the Standing Rock movement was a really important rebirth of energy of that social movement period of the 60s and 70s. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
We're growing together.
I agree on both parts. And I remember having Madonna on the show, and I think you were on the show too a few years ago, and they were kind of, son, where is everybody? There was a lull maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s of non-activism, and then Standing Rock happened, and people that you have interviewed over the years, including Madonna, I know she was everything from out in San Francisco with the Alcatraz all the way to Line 3, doing the work.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to be said about it. We make jokes about Madonna, but realizing that Forrest Gump, as a popular cultural reference, we're losing the generation who understands, why that might be funny. That she, but of course she wasn't unwittingly at all of these places. She was a master strategist behind pretty much every single significant public event and effort and movement that happened tied to the Red Power or Indigenous activism of the 60s and 70s. And, it is the case that I don't think our film Warrior Women, which I love and I'm really proud of, because it captures so much of what we wanted to convey. We actually arrived at Standing Rock stuck in the film. Christina King, who's the co-director of Warrior Women, we both were like, the story that we were trying to tell had stalled because Madonna and everyone else was feeling that same kind of lethargy of where are the activists, where's the movement, where do people understand that this is like the beginning of something. They kicked the doors open in the movement period of the 70s, and we have to walk through them. And that Standing Rock was part of that, I think, showing up. And it's something we need now too, right? Because this is the nature of movements. The second they get heavy and real, then the repression is tenfold. So we know that's happening.
I like what I learned from the Warrior Women Project is all these women during the Red Power movement and early years of AIM were really the people in the background doing all the work, and not some of the work, all of the work. And that was something at my age I was able to learn through the Warrior Women Project, just by not only, the stories, but just happenstance of the stories, meaning that there was a lot of humility in the stories.
Yeah, it's a really challenging thing at the end of the day, because part of what my goal with Warrior Women Project as well is, how do we change the way we even look at and understand what is history, right? Not in the way that people are attacking it now, who want to use history as nothing more than a propaganda tool, right? But if you want to tell the truth, how do you make the space for people to be understood in their own worldview? And that's what it took to express that it's not just that women did things too, it's that without women we wouldn't have transformed the landscape in the way that we did. So it's like the language is really limiting, right? Like background or backbone often means that you're not as prominent or not as important, and that we often think about things in hierarchies, but they're big ecosystems and everyone plays a role.
Well, we just got a minute left in this segment, and I want to talk about this a couple times, but there's some things that are happening here in the Twin Cities. Do you mind bringing that up? And then I want to talk about it again in the next segment.
Sure. So what's happening is that we have one of our educational pieces that we created that you were a part of is the 50th anniversary exhibit honoring the women of Wounded Knee. And it's an exhibit that will be showing at the Fairview Riverside Hospital, sponsored by the Indigenous Healing Circle. And I can talk more about that in the next segment. Is that?
Yeah,
Or should
definitely.
I keep going?
Yeah, well, we got about a minute left here in this segment. Yeah, and I'd love to talk about it even more, but that's amazing. And I had a chance to work with you in the 50th anniversary of Wounded Knee, and just seeing history. I love history, for one, and I love documentaries, but just to see history come alive, and these people, were ordinary people that did extraordinary things, and it's just amazing. Well, let's take a quick break, Dr. Beth. And great to see you. This has been really cool. And we're going to take a quick break. And we're talking with Beth Castle, a director of Warrior Women Project. And we're going to talk about more about Warrior Women Project and what's happening here in the Twin Cities this weekend, I think. We'll be right back after the short break. Oh, wow.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
This is Chase Iron Eyes announcing a new show on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, powered by Native Roots Radio. The show is called Native American Patriot Talk Radio. What will we do on the show? We are going to explore and dive into the source of American constitutional sovereignty, the intersection of Native American and legal issues. Find us the first and third Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. on AM 950.
Support comes from the Walker Arts Center. Did you know that the Walker has a cinema that shows film almost every week? From artist talks, genre-defined performances, and world premieres to archival shorts and experimental soundscapes, the Walker Cinema explores all modes of global and local filmmaking. Get your first tickets for free. Visit walkerart.org/cinema to learn more. That's walkerart.org/cinema. See you at the movies.
If the statistics say that 1 in 3 Native women and 1 in 6 Native men have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime, it means our whole community is affected by sexual violence. 1 is too many. Don't stand by, stand up. Don't engage in acts of sexual violence, and shut down the dirty jokes, the gossip, the victim blaming and shaming. As a community, we can change the way we respond. Contact the Minnesota Indian Women Sexual Assault Coalition to attend a workshop to learn more.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women Sexual Assault Coalition.
In this portion of the show, we'd like to bring awareness to our wolf and bear populations throughout Turtle Island. Say no to the hunts.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. We were with our friend, Dr. Beth Castle, Director of Warrior Women Projects. And before we get going on what's happening here this weekend, we have something that we want to talk about that's happening on March 31st. And I wonder if you mind letting our listeners know, because we're all over Turtle Island, and I think this is really important to talk about as you do.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because there's a woman who we met through your show. We never would have encountered her if she hadn't, I think she just called in. And this was early on when you were just kind of gathering people on Zoom, it felt like, and we were having good conversations. But she is an activist who showed up. She was part of Wounded Knee and the liberation of Wounded Knee in 1973. Her name is Lavetta Yigo. Yigu. I did it wrong, even though her daughter was training with me earlier. Lavetta called in. We were able to do an interview with her, and then she showed up at the 50th anniversary exhibit space where we were on, it was at February 27th, 2023. And she was part of a roundtable that you helped facilitate. And I remember she brought me a blanket that I sleep under every night. Sadly, yeah, she was so sweet. And Lavetta walked on this past year, and she passed away, and it was very unfortunate too, because we wanted to reconnect and learn more from her. I'm hoping we can continue to do that with her daughter Amber, who's helped to organize, along with the Kiowa tribe, a day of honoring and recognition. It's actually Lavetta Yigu's celebrating her day, the entire day. There's an event the 5th to the 8th, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, March 31st. And we'll be able to share some more information on our website, and I could share it with you as well. But part of why I wanted to bring it up is that she just told the most powerful story when we got on the Zoom call with her to do an interview, because we couldn't do it in person. It wasn't safe because of COVID. Right. She sang the AIM song. I hadn't even said hello to her. I hadn't known her in any other way, but she just really told the most powerful, raw story of what it was like to be a really young person and step into this space and be part of the 71-day occupation. And she was there every day. And so that's one of the ways in which, how important this community space is that you've created. I just wanted to bring that back, because to see more and more women, and I know there's more out there, contact us. We want to do your oral history and help see that you're part of the larger historical narrative, and see that this goes back to your communities. And that brings us back to this traveling exhibit that we've created, and she's one of the panels on the exhibit.
Yeah, it's amazing too. And the people that were there are still doing things, like Stephanie Autumn, who is also a young person. She's still working right now with women prisoners and helping them. I mean, the fire, the amber is still bright with a lot of our relatives that went through all these years ago too, that are still doing it.
I mean, that's the thing that is so important is, you're not a movement activist. You don't retire, right? And also there's no pension in the movement. So we need to look at ways we can take care of these elders who put everything on the line in really uncomfortable situations. They also stood up to their own tribes, right? Often to corrupt leaders in their tribes, which is another thing that, you know, is a challenge to handle. But, you know, that's the part of this, is that one of the things I pride about what we're doing with Warrior Women Project is we're activating our archives, right? Like, that sounds like the flash word and the hashtag or whatever, but it's just real. It's just that we always need our history immediately, right? It's never something that goes into a history book that goes on a shelf that isn't engaged with. Like, those lessons have to be immediate. And so often we don't listen to our mothers in the same way, you know, and so they have these stories. And I'm so glad that Lavetta shared her story and became part of something bigger in that way. But we have yet, you know, there's so much more we need to know. Come as an Oklahoma, you know, tribal person, what can we learn from her? Because there were quite a few women, you know, like Frances Wise, who is from Oklahoma as well, who played a really important role in the American Indian movement and Women of All Red Nations. So, you know, it's really awesome to see these connections be made, and definitely have like her daughter, who I don't know that well yet, but I'm hoping we can connect more in how we continue to help tell the history of her mom and the people that she knew, because that's how it works, right? Like, it's family based. You find one person and then you expand out to see who else did organizing that made it possible for you to go out and do what you did in the day. So
awe-inspiring. And let's talk a little bit again about the display that's going to be at, is it Fairview that's going to be at?
Yeah, you know, this is something it's been organized by Wyatt Pickner and Heather Fahey. I'm hoping I've said her name right. We made a connection locally when we did an event where we were supporting and bringing together some of the women of all Red Nations, including Winona LaDuke, Lisa Bellinger, Nancy Shippentower, Lakota Hardin, a number of people. This was back in October, and we met Heather there. And she's part of the Indigenous Healing Circle. I believe it's an employee group within and I'll stand to be corrected if I need to, because I don't want to misrepresent anything. But they basically did what we were hoping, which was invite and bring the exhibit to Fairview Riverside in the West Building. And it will be there from March 20th to April 1st. And anyone can come and engage with it. There's a reception on Friday from 12 to 2 p.m., this Friday, the 20th. But part of this, and you mentioned Stephanie Autumn earlier, Lisa Bellinger, who is a pretty, you know, well-known local activist whose mother, Pat Bellinger, was one of the co-founders of WARN, Women of All Red Nations, and the American Indian Movement, are going to host this 16-panel exhibit that we created those years ago so that we could see that this, and each panel is an interview that's in our collection. And it's a brief bit about the story of that woman, and it's a 3x7 foot panel. And then you can use a QR code, or be instructed on how you can see on our website. You can listen to the clip of the interview that's relevant. So it's a very interactive experience, and it is meticulously researched. So unlike a lot of things where you're like, often people said it and they meant, you know, women were there and they did this and they did that, but who were they? When were they born? What else did they do? What were their lives like, right? So that's what we try to do with this exhibit. And also the thing that we're so proud of is that it is a handful of folks who identified as American Indian Movement activists, members, leaders, being part of the movement. But many of the women here are what we call the matriarchs of Pine Ridge, who were the, you know, middle-aged women who were holding it down and pushing back against the corruption that was happening locally. So, you know, it's a very powerful exhibit, and we're hoping, especially as it's based in Minneapolis right now, that it gets out to a lot more areas and that it can be seen and other people want to take it on and show it and engage with it.
Wow, that's amazing. And I know Heather very well. She's been on the show. As a matter of fact, I reached out to Heather, and she has pneumonia right now. And then I thought, well, let's call Dr. Beth Castle. I haven't talked to you in a while. And I am so glad that we talked, because we need to do this more often. And one more time about the exhibit in Minneapolis.
The Women of Wounded Knee exhibit, March 20th through April 1st, will be at Fairview Riverside West Building, available to the public to view. And you can find out more at warriorwomen.org. And we really invite you to join our mailing list. We really want to be able to be in direct communication with you. So all of those can be found at warriorwomen.org.
Well, thank you so much. Beth, do you mind holding on after the show? I just want to ask you something really quick. Hey, this is Native Roots Radio. If you're listening to the show, you are part of the resistance from Chief Plenty Coop, the ground on which we stand on. It's sacred ground. It's the blood of our ancestors. We need to resist, divest, join a group, and vote. We'll be here tomorrow. This has been Native Roots Radio.
This is Chase Iron Eyes announcing a new show on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, powered